question. What's an event? Anybody? What's an example of an event? Who's done sort of, what have you done?
Open house.
Open house, okay.
Celebration.
Okay, great.
Hockey tournament.
Love it, great, great. So those are all really great examples. I am really into word clouds for some reason these days. So it's all of those things. It's an opportunity for people to come together at a certain place, at a certain time, for a specific reason. One of the things that I want to just kind of throw out for you is when we talk about events, in my experience, there are two different types of events. There are what we call friend-raising events, right? Which is nothing more than you want to add people to your database or get people familiar with your organization. So it's sort of that community outreach effort. No real thoughts of asking for money or incorporating what I call an ask into the event. It's really just more, the cocktail type of thing where you might have that aha moment, that person from your organization get up and speak and say a few words and really sort of give something people to walk away with that's going to connect them to the event. And then there are the other events that are indeed the straightforward, this is a fundraiser, you're here because we're asking you for money or you've made a donation, whether it's a golf tournament, a hockey tournament, fundraiser, a walkathon, and we'll talk about all of those things as we get into today's presentation. So all really good examples. These are some of my favorite types of events. We've all done the athons, right? The walkathons, the phone-a-thons, whatever they are. Someone said award ceremony, I think. Awareness breakfast. The events just go on and on and on. They are as endless as one can imagine. So any of these sort of look familiar? Anything that you've done? Anything that you have done that's not on the list?
Well, we've done it for the last couple of years, but we do a, one day out of the year, we do a massive CPR training.
Great.
Across all age
Great.
groups.
Great. Is there anything on this list that anyone's been to and would never go to again, type of event? Is there a type of event on this list that if you never got invited to again, you would be thrilled?
Probably a golf tournament.
We're
So
going to talk about that. Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
so overdone, it's just.
So I was going to say, can you expand on that a little bit? What's
Yeah.
your sort of thought
Well,
about?
and honestly, I don't golf, and it's not a poo-poo thing. I was actually co-chair of the YMCA golf tournament when I worked for Channel 22. And it's just trying to get people there because they're already scheduled for a golf tournament every other single week.
Absolutely.
From May to September or October. And you keep asking the same people. And then at the end, the drunkenness wasn't good either.
Yeah.
It just, trying to control people's
Yeah.
alcohol intake.
We could
That's why
spend.
this is an early morning meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good morning.
Absolutely. Yeah, and we'll talk about that. And indeed, I was just mentioning to Maureen as we were getting ready this morning, we could spend an entire session on how to plan successful golf tournaments because they are, of all the events that I've done in my career, and I've done everything from small intimate cocktail parties up to events of thousands of people when I was in Los Angeles. They're intensive. They take a lot of time and a lot of work. We could spend an entire workshop on.
Well, the other thing too is people have preconceived notions of what's going to go on.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So one of the things that you want to do is when you are thinking of an event, choose your event wisely. You know your organization, so choose an event that matches sort of the mission of your organization and what your goals are. So, and your goals are going to vary. Okay, so again, let's talk about some of the events that we would rather not see. Again, golf tournaments. I agree with you. If I get invited to one more golf tournament, and I outside of my work life, I will sort of, full disclosure, I am the chair of the board of directors for Friends of the Columbia Greenway Rail Trail, and we are in the midst of planning our golf tournament. And really, the reason we do a golf tournament is because our board of directors, and how many of you work with a board of directors? or how many of you are on a board of directors? Okay, so no offense to anyone in the room, but our board of directors literally said one day, and this came from someone who had no experience doing an event, right? Because those people all sit on their boards, said, why don't we do a fundraiser? And I thought, well, that's really great. Why don't we, And then they said, well, why don't we do a golf tournament? Out of the blue, right? Sure, why not? Who wants to do that? And I kind of raised my hand, and so, anyways, golf tournaments, yeah, not one of my favorite things.
No, and on that, along those lines, being on the other side, when I was at the newspaper, I handled sponsorships. And I can't tell you how many times we got asked to sponsor golf tournaments. And so I came up with a policy was that we do not sponsor golf tournaments because the budget would be depleted if we did. So instead what we did, just so that we would participate, is that we would give an auction or a raffle prize item whenever we were asked. So that way there we were still participating in some way, but we weren't donating a lot of money to support the event.
Absolutely. Now that being said, the one thing I will say about golf tournaments, and again, I know I sound probably a little negative, and I don't need to be. They can be very, very rewarding in terms of their profitability. Done correctly, they can be very, very profitable. And I'm gonna not put you on the spot, sorry to put you on the spot, but Bill Parks from the Boys and Girls Club does an amazing golf tournament. So amazing, so successful that, correct me if I'm wrong, but your golf tournament actually takes place at 2 golf courses on the same day. It's that oversubscribed.
It's our biggest fundraiser.
It's their biggest fundraiser, and they bring in like $50,000-$60,000-ish.
That's
So,
great.
yeah, so that's phenomenal.
I think it's with anything, if you have a network of people, because Bill has such this enormous network.
Absolutely,
So
absolutely.
people will go to him because it's him. And I've heard of, I think Tom Infant Care, there's a waiting list to be on the golf tournament.
Absolutely.
Because you cannot, if you leave, then there's an opening. But and you can't leave and come back once you're going to go.
Right.
So they create this must-have kind of a mentality for
Mhm.
their golf tournament. And I think that's with any event. Like I've tried to do golf tournaments that we've had to cancel because we just didn't, it was saturated and we didn't have a hook that was unique from any of the other golf tournaments.
Absolutely. So Diana hit on a couple of really great points, is that part of the success of any good fundraiser does rely indeed on the network that you've built, right? Sort of the message that you've gotten out there, and we'll talk about this in just a little bit, is about how you've communicated over the years with your constituents and sort of you're building your brand, if you will. And then I just lost the other thing that you said. Okay, it'll come up again. But one of our other sort of least favorite events to attend are, the walkathons, the 5K road races. Again, they seem like, particularly in Westfield, they happen almost every weekend. So.
And nothing wrong with them, and
Yeah.
I admire, and I've done them. It's the point that I think Jeff and I want to make is that if you, and it seems like most of you, have not done a lot of events, and you have an opportunity to do an event in the future, try to think outside of the box and not do things that have been done over and over again, because you won't stand out, you won't be unique. People are always looking for something different.
Right. Absolutely. Doing a golf tournament just for the sake of doing a golf tournament is not the best sort of plan, if you will. You have to find that special thing that makes your golf tournament unique, or make it stand out from all the other golf tournaments in the area. Same thing with road races. Yes, please.
There is an organization there that does an all-female golf tournament. I can't think of what that is.
Yeah.
Is it the EWGA?
No, it's a nonprofit that does an all-female.
Well, maybe the Women's Fund.
Might be the women's
Maybe
club.
the
It might
Women's
be.
Fund.
Yeah.
Women's Fund, yeah.
Women's Fund?
Or the Women's
Western
Fund.
Mass?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It is.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're talking about social media law, and there's really not much of any law that's you really say was developed for social media. Social media law is regular law, just applied to the internet and to what you've been doing in social media. It's still about communication. It's still about selling and marketing. It's still about individual rights. It's still about property rights. It's about people's reputations. We'll try to cover a little bit of all of that today under some what are really fairly standard legal concepts, but as they've been applied in the internet world. At the end, we'll talk about a couple of statutes that have been developed more recently to address particular internet concerns, but for the most part, we talked about basic intellectual property ideas. So we're going to, hopefully, these are, I don't know if this will come up for us.
We
This
do
how many
have
we-
wireless in here.
We don't have wireless?
We do.
We do?
It's called Caritas.
Okay, excuse me for a second. Hopefully, if I don't do this real fast, we can go on without it. It's not that difficult. It's called which one?
Caritas.
Oh, Caritas. Do we need a password?
You should.
Okay, let's try. Let's see what happens. Okay. Is somebody here from Amelia Park? Yeah. Okay, so this is your website. Okay, let's see what else we got here. Whoops. How about Carson Center? Is Carson Center here?
Yeah.
Let's see what we got here. Okay. Is the Carson Center for Human Services, have you registered that trademark? Who's the person from Carson Center?
I don't know if there's a registered trademark. It's been around 50 years.
Okay.
Our Camp for Kids is a registered trademark.
Camp for Kids? Okay, great. And that's something that's run through this site? Can I get to it?
Yeah, right now. Go ahead.
Right down here? Right.
I don't think there's a link.
Oh, maybe here? Okay.
It's
Well,
just a
anyway.
video.
So you've got some people's pictures that you're using. You've got a name. You've got some discussion of things. You're on Facebook? Yeah. What do you do on Facebook?
Mostly promotion of our activities. We're very careful because we're a mental health and rehabilitation service agency.
Okay. So you're worried about personal health information and the like?
Personal health information and also client interaction, since we don't watch the site 24/7.
But people can enter information onto the site?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so we have Westfield. Let's take you one more. Let's just see what Westfield State. Who's here from Westfield State?
There's a few students and a few professors.
Okay. Who's here? Yeah,
Professors,
the professor.
Students.
Professor.
3 students.
What is your area?
Communication.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Have you been involved in developing a website, John?
A little
A little bit. Okay. Do you know who this person is?
That person, no, I'm new.
You're not going to take any credit. Okay. All right. All right, let's see what we can do with this. So we're going to talk about some of these sites: Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Foursquare, LinkedIn, your blog, your website. And since I've done this, which was maybe a year ago or so, there's other ones have developed. Do you use Yik Yak? No. Anybody use Yik Yak? It seems to be a student thing. So this was a good summary, I thought, of social media, at least a while back. Let's just see what. It's all sort of different takes on the same thing, kind of, right? Okay. But it's a big business. Here's just some statistics I thought were interesting. We've got over 1.3 billion Facebook users, 92% are social networkers. You know, the revenues are obviously huge, and a lot of social media is now being done on mobile devices. These are some of the phobias that businesses would have, right? These are some of the concerns about the internet and about social media that you may have, you may or may not have. From anything from we're going to get sued, the costs, return on investment. Are people going to be using social media to give away trade secrets? What about your brand and your message, your trademarks? And of course, what maybe everybody's worried about is employees wasting time on it. But if you think about social media or about the internet, it's a two-way market. We're talking about distributing information and acquiring information. That's basically what it's all about, and that's what the law is concerned with, either how the information is being distributed or how it's being acquired. What's your message, how you're getting it out there, and what methods are you using to acquire it. Consumer information is now a huge commodity, as you probably can all tell. I mean, people are breaking into accounts all the time to try to steal it. But it's every day your information is being harvested, and it is treated like a commodity. It's bought and sold. It's seamless, it's silent, but it's generally legal, and that's what's going on out there. And I like this phrase that if you are paying for it, you are the commodity. If you're on the internet, you're getting information for free. Your information, the fact that you're there and what you're doing is how you're paying for it. But people are paying money for that information. This is, I thought, was a kind of fun. Now this is done a couple years ago. Hopefully this will come up. About what it would be like in 2015. I thought, well, maybe not, but well, maybe it wasn't too far off. Let's see if I can get this fixed. I don't have the speakers on.
Pizza Palace? Is this Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Thank you for calling again, sir. I share your national identification number as 610-204-999-8-45-54610. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. I see you live at 736 Montrose Court, but you're calling from your cell phone. Are you at home?
I'm just leaving work, but I'm...
Oh, we can deliver to Bob's Auto Supply.
No, I'm on my way home. How do you know all this stuff?
We just got wired into the system, sir.
Oh, well, I'd like to order a couple of your double meat special pizzas.
Sure thing. There'll be a new $20 charge for those, sir.
What do you mean?
Sir, the system shows me that your medical records indicate a total of $67 even.
$67?
That includes the delivery surcharge of $15 to cover the added risk to our driver of traveling through an orange zone.
I live in an orange zone?
Now you do. Looks like there was another robbery on Montrose yesterday.
But I want double meat.
Well, I'm sure you can afford the $67 then. You just bought those tickets to Hawaii. They were library last week.
I'll get the Sprout subs.
Good choice, sir. Gotta watch that waist if you're hitting the beach, eh? 42 inches. Wow.
That's how much?
Just between you and me, there's a $3 off coupon in this month's Total Men's Fitness magazine. Your wife Betty subscribes to that, right? Anyhow, click that and it's $19.99 even. Whoa, looks like you maxed out on all your credit cards. Bring cash, okay?
Want to stop this from happening?
That's great.
So you know, when I looked at this again, I thought, well, it hasn't quite happened. But if you think about it, it sort of has. There's been some limits on this. Obviously, in the health area, there's federal law that's been passed to protect personal health information, and that seems to be fairly effective. But that type of information is being collected about you, and it's being transferred between parties. And maybe some of that can't be transferred between parties. It might be called personal information. But it's being used within the company. But anyway, so that's kind of the current. Back to my show here. So this is, I mean, I've sort of broke it down to, you know, in terms of what social law has to do with social media. We're talking about protecting personal rights, as just implicated by that video, privacy and publicity, personal reputation, and protecting the vulnerable, the children. And we'll just talk a little bit about that. And then also it's about promoting commerce, very much so, of course, right? Establishing and protecting brands, we're going to talk about that. Monetizing intellectual property, and by that I just mean, you know, ideas, people that have ideas, whether it's patented or otherwise. A lot of people want to turn it into money, and that can happen through social media and the internet. And of course, it's about honoring promises. It's all still about honoring promises, and that's in the nature of contracts. So these are the various laws that could be involved. There's something called the right to publicity. It's recognized in most states now. There's copyright, trademark, trade secrets, and contracts. And hopefully by the end of today, at a minimum, everyone's going to know the difference between copyright and trademark. And hopefully maybe the difference with trade secrets also.
Well, I'm so happy to be here, and I'm happy because I know so many people here, and obviously have known these folks for a very long time, and I think that we're very fortunate to have, especially these three representatives from these industries, because I don't know anybody who are better suited to help communicate to you how to go ahead using media in order to market your nonprofits. How many people have used advertising to market their nonprofits? How many people think they really can't afford to do it the way that they would like to? Pretty much everybody. Well, we're here to hopefully dispel some of those myths and to give you some real practical strategies about how to go ahead and be able to develop relationships and partnerships with the media outlets. That's a word, and not having spoken to these guys ahead of time, I'm sure we're going to hear a lot of this morning. Partnerships. One of the things that I have found in working with the nonprofits that I work with, and obviously being on the same side of the table as they are and buying their services, is that in this market, particularly in Springfield, we are very, very fortunate to have media outlets who really understand what it's like to develop relationships with the communities that they serve. And they take those relationships very seriously. And one of the things that we don't often realize as nonprofits is that not only are the media outlets tasked with being community servants as part of getting their license to broadcast or as far as their publishing goes, but they want to. They want to serve the community. They want to be a part of what you are doing for a number of reasons. Obviously, it gives them some incredible ties into the community, but they see their responsibility as broadcasters and as publishers as a very sacred trust. And I think what we're going to hear today is how much you really can work with them to not just buy an ad or a commercial or a radio spot, but to develop long-term relationships that can significantly benefit your organizations. So I want to talk about a number of things today in terms of how to approach, everything from how to approach these organizations, and each of these folks represents a particular type of organization. We have radio and television and print, as well as digital, all three. Now, digital is something that pretty much every outlet, whether you are a TV station or a newspaper, you have some online component. In fact, probably a fairly substantial online component. And we want to talk about how to approach that from the grassroots. But also, I really want to talk a little bit about how advertising is different for nonprofits than it would be for a retail or a corporate client. And how a lot of times what you can do with these media outlets is very different than what, say, a store down the street could do. Rich Uihlein, I'm going to start here, has had enormous experience in really helping to work within nonprofits and grow their brand substantially. I think, and I don't want to embarrass you, Rich, but I mean, Rich, with his work with Shriners Hospital, is responsible for bringing in, literally 7 figures worth of donations while being able to obviously also incorporate the station's brands into that effort. Rich, can you talk a little bit about how you approach working with a nonprofit differently than you would with a corporate client?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, what you're talking about, we're reaching out to, any group we want to help them out. We like to ascertain if there is some kind of budget because it makes our job easier when we go to the bosses in corporate to try and do things. With that, it's setting up, schedules to talk about whatever the event is, whatever the cause is, and then augmenting it. I mean, we'll run all kinds of PSAs, we'll run extra commercials that we don't do for regular stores to help everybody out. So it usually starts with that, and then if there's an event that you have where you're attracting people, where we can be there and make it bigger, I mean, it's a win-win. It helps you folks with what you're doing, and it helps us, and it makes us look like, we've got more of our listeners there. And again, any number of our listeners are tied in with what your respective charities are, and if it's important to them, it's important to us, and we like to help you.
One of the things that I know that's important when someone comes to you and says that they want to buy advertising, Mary, what are you looking for from them? I mean, I use the phrase buy a little, get a lot.
Right.
From the television stations, and now obviously you've got 3 stations to be able to help people reach an audience with. What do you look at from the standpoint of the station as to, A, what can you do for charities, B, how can you get involved? How do you approach that?
Well, first of all, when there's a nonprofit, I always tell people, just because it's nonprofit doesn't mean a news story is going to get covered. I always tell people, learn how to write a press release and make your relationship with the news department. When it comes to the sales end, we're in business to make money. I mean, obviously, we're not PBS, but what we try to do to help charities is, if you spend a little money, we'll bonus airtime in other areas. The news is where I would put money on, the spots on, because we sell out of news. So an example might be the Raise a Hope. Raise a Hope had a campaign. We partnered with them all year round. But they wanted more push. So they bought news spots, but I gave a bunch of extra on all the other, the other 2 networks, in areas that aren't news. We don't run every PSA that comes to the door. I connect them with Dave Matson for PSAs. And we have so many that we partner with all year round. So you can always tie into another client. I sometimes say to people, not everybody wants to advertise. Take that lawyer that says, I don't want to advertise, it looks bad. So why don't they find a nonprofit that they go to the lawyer, say you run a 20-second commercial, the lawyer does, the PSA is of the nonprofit, and the 10-second becomes the lawyer sponsoring it. That's the way a nonprofit could have somebody else pay for it. I mean, there's all kinds of ideas you can come up with to make it work.
Sponsorship opportunities.
Sponsorship opportunities, and just, getting a relationship with the news department is a big deal too.
Mark, with the newspaper and obviously now with Mass Live, things have changed dramatically in your world. What has changed in terms of how you're dealing with nonprofits over the years? Now you have a lot more real estate to provide, don't you?
We do. Between Mass Live and the Republican, we have a significant footprint. With the Republican, we're really you would call it the Springfield, Holyoke designated market area, Hampshire and Hampden counties, but Mass Live really is statewide and beyond. So there's a huge responsibility to cover news and information across both platforms. To answer your question, Adam, I think the thing that can get confusing is because Mass Live actually has a separate building and a separate staff than the Republican. There's a separation of the 2 organizations, but yet Republican powers Mass Live because much of our news organization feeds into the real-time news and information on Mass Live. But when we work with nonprofits, I will mirror some of what Rich and Mary said. I mean, when you work with us, one of the things we do look for, it'd be great if you had some sort of cash budget available. I recognize that that's very difficult, but if I were going to encourage you, one way or another, if you can find a way to somehow develop a budget for media buy, it helps us. At the end of the day, we're all responsible for achieving our budgets. We're not non-for-profit. We have significant expenses and other things to pay for: salespeople, sales commissions. We got to put the lights on. Newsprint's very expensive, and having a news organization is very expensive. So my job as the advertising director, quite frankly, is one of the biggest areas of income that helps to subsidize all of those services. You don't make money selling newspapers for $1.50 or $2.50 on Sunday. You just don't. There's too much there's too much overhead involved in that, so advertising needs to supplement that. For you, when you come to me and recognize that there are, again, like all media, are being approached by excellent organizations throughout our marketplace, but there's so many that if you really want to get attention, it helps if you have a little cash budget that we can embellish. We'll be happy to do that. To Mary's comment about having excellent communications with our news departments, either across the newspaper or directly with Mass Live. You'd be amazed how often we actually may ask for information, whether it's for a community calendar and so forth, and we get no response. And yet, that's free, and we're happy to publish those things. From the paid standpoint, we work with you on rate, we work on added value. Trust me, if the number of golf tournaments that come in, the number of I get more golf tournament invitations, 5K runs and so forth, and I gotta stop because I have to wear my marketing hat and say, well, what's really gonna resonate the most if we're gonna put our brand attached to it? And that's not to say all of you don't have something special, a supper, a run, a benefit, a ball, that's not really important, but you gotta remember we can't do it all. So, again, I'm sorry I'm vacillating, but one of the first things we may ask you is what is the purpose of why you are advertising? What is the audience you're trying to reach? What platform are you using? Do you have a budget? Honestly, between the three of us, before we sell or offer you anything, we really need to have a discussion about what's important to you, what are performance indicators for how that campaign may work. So, you could go on, Adam, when he operates his agency, doesn't have a client and come in and say, I'd love to advertise, and he starts buying media and writing creative. He probably spends several days with a prospective client to figure out what they're trying to accomplish before he even starts that process.
And one of the most important things is really determining what your unique selling position is. What differentiates you? What makes your message more important than the guy down the street, or your cause more important? Everybody here thinks their cause is the most important, as it should be. How do you then communicate that? And one of the great things about using media in this market is that you have people who can help you with that. You don't have to use an ad agency, although we'd like you to. You don't have to use an ad agency to do that. You've got really creative people right in these buildings that are tasked with helping you to determine what the best way to advertise, what the best vehicle would be for your particular brand. How important is relationships? I know that one of the things that we talk about a lot when we talk to nonprofits about how to better utilize media is get the media involved with your organization. Show them, without necessarily having a financial commitment, but show them what you do, so that if you can find somebody in that station or at that newspaper that has an interest in your organization outside of work,